In a small village nestled between green fields and tall date trees, lived a young man named Zikr. He was well known among the villagers, not for his piety, but for his cheerful nature. Zikr was kind at heart, generous to his friends, and always the center of gatherings. Whether it was the marketplace, a wedding celebration, or an evening of idle chatter under the old banyan tree, Zikr was there. But one thing was missing in his life: connection with his creator. Zikr prayed occasionally, mostly when elders reminded him, but his heart was never truly present. He was more concerned with trade, social bonds, and enjoying the temporary pleasures of youth. Religion, to him, was something he thought he would turn to later in life, once he was older and free of responsibilities. One spring evening, news spread through the village: a saintly man has arrived, a true servant of Allah. The villagers, curious and eager, rushed to the open ground near the mosque where this man had settled. He was an elderly figure, wrapped in simple white clothes, his face calm and radiant, as if a gentle light rested upon it. People instinctively felt respect when they saw him. He was not a man of wealth, nor of status, yet his presence commanded hearts. Zikr, who was strolling nearby, overheard the commotion. Another preacher, perhaps, he thought carelessly, but something in his heart nudged him, urging him to go and listen. So he joined the crowd, sitting in the last row, arms folded across his chest, more out of curiosity than eagerness. The old man began to speak in a soft but powerful voice. His words were simple, yet they carried a weight that pierced hearts. He said, "O people, this world that you cling to, its wealth, its beauty, its pleasures will not last. You and I will one day be lowered into the ground, and nothing will accompany us except our deeds. The real treasure is faith. The real peace is in remembering Allah." As he spoke, silence fell over the gathering. Children who had been playing nearby stopped to listen. Even the restless winds seemed to pause. Zikr felt something stir inside him. At first, he resisted the feeling. "I've heard these words before," he told himself. "Every scholar says the same thing." But no matter how much he tried to brush it off, the words of the old man echoed in his chest like a bell. The world is temporary. The real wealth is faith. That night, Zikr returned home, unsettled. He lay down on his bed, but sleep would not come. His heart felt heavy, his mind restless. He replayed the scene in his head: the glowing face of the Alawala, the stillness of the crowd, and those haunting words. "What if death comes for me tonight?" he thought suddenly, his eyes wide open in the darkness. "What have I prepared? What will I take with me?" His chest tightened with fear. He tried to distract himself, thinking of his friends, his shop, his laughter-filled evenings. But none of these brought him comfort. Instead, they now seemed hollow, like sand slipping through his fingers. Hours passed. The village fell into deep slumber, but Zikr lay awake, tossing and turning, his heart battling with questions he had never dared to ask before. For the first time in his life, he realized he was lost in heedlessness. He had been chasing shadows, forgetting the one who had given him life, food, and health. Tears welled up in his eyes, though he could not fully understand why. As the call for Fajr dawn prayer rang out from the mosque, echoing softly across the fields, Zikr sat up. He felt as though the Adhan was calling him personally, whispering, "Return to your Lord, the doors are still open." With trembling steps, he rose, washed himself, and walked toward the mosque. His heart beat faster with every step. Inside, the prayer had just begun. For the first time in years, Zikr stood in the first row. As he bowed his head in prostration, he felt an unfamiliar peace wash over him. It was as though his heart, long thirsty, had finally tasted water. When he finished the prayer, he sat quietly in a corner. Around him, villagers exchanged greetings, but he remained still, lost in thought. His eyes brimmed with tears as he whispered under his breath, "Ya Allah, I have wasted so much of my life. Forgive me, guide me." That day marked the beginning of Zikr's journey. A restless night, a few simple words from a godly man, and the call of dawn had awakened his soul. The village saw nothing unusual in Zikr that morning. To them, he was the same young man, But deep inside, Zubair knew something had shifted forever. His heart was no longer the same. This was the first spark of light, the beginning of guidance. The next morning, as the sun rose gently over the fields, Zubair felt different. His heart was still heavy with the echoes of last night's restlessness, yet a quiet determination had begun to grow inside him. The words of the saintly man would not leave his mind. It was as though they had been etched onto his soul, refusing to fade. While his friends gathered as usual near the tea stall, laughing and sharing stories, Zubair felt no urge to join them. Instead, he found his steps leading him back to the place where the Alawala was staying. The old man sat under a tree, surrounded by a few villagers who had come to seek advice. His face was calm, his eyes gentle, and his presence radiated a peace that immediately soothed Zubair's restless heart. When the gathering ended, Zubair hesitated for a moment, then walked forward with lowered eyes. Sitting humbly before the elder, he whispered, "Hazarite, my heart is not at peace. I cannot sleep, I cannot laugh as I used to. I feel like a man lost in a storm, searching for the shore. Tell me, what should I do?" The old man looked at him with kindness, as though he had been expecting this question. Placing a hand on Zubair's shoulder, he said softly, "My son, this unease you feel is a gift from Allah. It is a sign that your heart is awakening. Do not run from it. Embrace it. Begin with small steps. Keep your tongue moist with the remembrance of Allah. Hold firmly to prayer, for it will anchor your heart. Leave behind lies, idle talk, and gatherings that distract you from the truth. When you give your heart to Allah, the love of this world will no longer imprison you. Instead, you will taste a sweetness that never fades." The words sank deep into Zubair's soul. He felt as if a locked door inside him had suddenly opened, and light was pouring through. Right there, he made a silent promise. His life would no longer be wasted in heedlessness. In the days that followed, the change in Zubair was evident. He began to rise early for every prayer, his place often in the first row of the mosque. His friends noticed his absence from their nightly gatherings. At first, they laughed, teasing him. "Zubair has turned into a saint," they joked. But soon they realized he was serious. He no longer joined them in idle chatter or pointless arguments. When they invited him, he smiled gently and said, "My brothers, the heart finds no peace in these things. Come with me to the mosque, and you will understand." Though many dismissed his invitation, a few were struck by the calmness in his voice. Zubair's face, once marked by carefree laughter, now carried a quiet glow. People noticed that his dealings in the market became fairer, his words gentler, his temper softer. Even children felt the change. They would run to him, for he always greeted them with warmth and never raised his voice. But the journey was not without struggle. There were nights when the weight of his old habits pulled him back, when whispers of temptation invited him to return to his former ways. He would sit in solitude, fighting with himself, torn between the life he had known and the life he now sought. In those moments, the words of the Alawala echoed like a lifeline. Keep your tongue with the remembrance of Allah. Prayer will anchor your heart. One night, overwhelmed by his inner battle, Zubair fell into prostration and cried until his face was wet with tears. "O Allah," he whispered, his voice trembling, "I am weak. I cannot do this alone. Hold me, guide me, forgive me." When he arose from that prayer, he felt lighter, as though a great burden had been lifted from his chest. From then on, he understood that true strength came not from himself but from the one who had created him. Weeks turned into months, and Zubair's transformation became the talk of the village. The same young man who had once been the life of idle gatherings was now known as a man of prayer, humility, and honesty. Some ridiculed him, saying it was only a phase, that he would soon return to his old ways. But others, seeing the sincerity in his eyes, began to reflect on their own lives. Quietly, a ripple of change spread among the people. A few started coming to the mosque more regularly. A few abandoned dishonesty in their dealings. It was as though the light that had touched Zubair's heart was beginning to touch others too. One evening, as Zubair sat outside his home reciting the Quran, an old friend approached him hesitantly. "Zubair," he said, "what has happened to you? You seem at peace, while the rest of us are restless. Tell me your secret. Zubair closed the Quran, smiled gently, and replied, There is no secret, my brother. I only turned my face towards Allah. The peace you see is not mine, it is His gift. If you seek it, it will be yours too. The word struck his friend deeply. In that moment, Zubair realized the truth of what the Alawala had told him. When the heart connects with Allah, not only does one's own life change, but the lives of others are also drawn towards light. Thus, the restless young man had begun a new chapter. His journey was not perfect, nor free from trials, but his direction was clear. And in that clarity, in that sincere effort to please his Creator, he discovered the greatest treasure of all, peace of the heart and nearness to Allah.